Hi, Stuart Bruce here, and I am the Spare Time Property Investor. In these podcasts, I'm going to share tips, tricks, and lessons that I've learned and will hopefully help you, especially if you're still working the 9 to 5. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Spare Time Property Investor podcast. In today's episode, I interview Victoria Kerslake, or Tory as she's known. We talk about HMOs, buy-to-lets and all things property, but we also talk about how she made the jump from the 9 to 5 to full-time in property. And it's quite a different kind of creative way that she managed to do it, which hopefully will get a few people thinking differently. But she also said this.
I don't have a massive passion for property. I have a passion for what property has done for my family.
So she has a slightly different perspective on property to some other people, but it's a really, really good journey she's had so far. So without wanting to waste any more time, here is the interview with Tory. So thanks again, Tory, for coming on to the podcast. First off, it would be fantastic if you could introduce yourself and let us know what you're up to in property.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is super exciting. I love talking about property and what it's done for us. So this is wicked. So at the minute, I have to admit I'm being a little bit lazy, or I would say up until this year, I've been a little bit lazy. We'd have quite aggressive plans for 2021. But I actually had a baby last May. So since then, from kind of May to about October, it coincided quite nicely with COVID that there wasn't really that much going on anyway. But we've just been sort of chilling a little bit, enjoying some family time. We've been maintaining what we've got, but we've not been aggressively growing. We've had 2 buy-to-lets during that time be refurbed and refinanced.
Okay.
But that was about, which is quite like low level activity for us. But we've just been sort of chilling and having some family time. But prior to that, when we finished work at the end of 2018, we moved to our investment area and basically had a year of beasting it in the area before then moving to my hometown to procreate, as it were.
Cool, that sounds good. So there's
politely.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. So there's you were obviously able to take some time out because of the portfolio you've built up. So it'd be great to talk about what portfolio roughly you were able to build up to enable that. And also you talked about an investment area. So where is your investment area?
Yeah, so we have 2 main areas. We have a rogue property in London. That's just the one that we lived in and turned into a buy-to-let when we moved out. And we have a rogue one in Norwich, where I'm from, because that's kind of how I got started, really. My dad bought it. It's just a 3-bed for me to live in when I was at uni.
Yeah.
But other than that, our main investment area is South Yorkshire. So we lived in London and started investing in Nottinghamshire. So we've got HMOs there. And then when we moved there, we said, okay, actually, we've only got HMOs. We feel pretty vulnerable because I already had the previous property. We were able, in terms of lending, we were able to bypass buy-to-let because I technically on paper had 8-10 years of landlord experience, even though it wasn't really, I didn't run it as a business. I saw it as like a massive pain in the arse, to be honest. Because of that, my husband was able to piggyback off my experience. And so we were able to go straight into HMOs. But then when we moved to our area and we're just doing HMOs, we then suddenly thought, oh, actually, we're a bit vulnerable here. And whilst we lived there, it was a lot easier to access even further north to South Yorkshire, Barnsley, around there. And so we kind of switched strategy when we were there. And so our buy-to-lets are in that area, apart from the 2 rogue ones, I've already mentioned.
Cool, okay. So when you're saying about, feeling kind of vulnerable because you were focused on HMOs, I mean, dig into that a little bit. What do you mean?
So we were putting all of our efforts into HMOs and we're kind of growing our HMO portfolio and we're really happy with it and stuff. But we didn't feel that we had a very diversified portfolio. I am always are in the heart, a teacher, and my husband was an accountant. So if you look at our appetite for risk, I don't take any risk because, mate, that's a kid's future. And my husband doesn't take any risk because, his business could go down, whatever. So when it comes to risk and looking at our portfolio, we thought things like all of our, not all, that's a lie. A large majority of our HMOs are ensuite bedrooms. And thought, okay, I know some councils have started putting council tax on individual ensuite bedrooms.
The VIA stuff, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That Fortunately, touch wood, that hasn't happened in our area yet, but we thought if it did, that could really hurt us. What if the government at the job fair, and this is just me, I know a lot of people have HMOs and feel completely safe. I'm just always thinking, like, kind of plan for the worst. If something happened to that particular investment strand, as it were, or that particular strategy, if it was regulated anymore, I mean, ours are all licensed, but if something else came in and that's all we had, then we could be really hurt. And actually, thank God we did, because I know I haven't seen anybody openly really talk about it, but our HMOs were really, really affected by COVID. I haven't seen on social media anyone else really openly say, yeah, they've really suffered with arrears or voids or the eviction process. But the area that we invested our HMOs in is quite industrial. It tends to be kind of workers. The majority of them were furloughed, and literally overnight, within a month, our arrears and occupancy, we had a load of tenants literally just leave, like, bye, see, I didn't even give us notice, just fled. And then a lot go on to furlough, and so we had a lot of arrears, dropped from, I think our average is usually around 85-90% across the portfolio, it literally dropped to like 55%.
Wow, okay, that is a massive impact.
Huge. And we were like, oh my God. Thankfully, we had some buy-to-lets to fall back on. So it was a situation which we would predicted it would to be COVID, but we thought if something affects our HMOs, we need to have an additional investment strategy going on. So that's kind of why we quickly almost did it back to front. Like, we did HMOs first to get out of work, and then went on to buy-to-lets to build the foundation just as a security blanket. And again, touch wood, we've not been affected on our buy-to-lets at all. We've not missed a single penny of rent coming in. Our tenants are amazing. We have like rent insurance just in case on those, which we don't have on our HMOs, but we haven't had any problems with the buy-to-lets at all. And I mean, fortunately for us in our business planning, we always have like 6 months of costs in savings per property anyway, just in case. So it had bounced back a bit by then. But initially we were just a bit like, what the hell is going on here? Like, oh my God. And obviously as our sole income, we were just like, is this actually happening? And this was like a month gave birth, and I was like, what is going on here? So yeah, that's what I'm talking about when I say we felt vulnerable just having one asset. So yeah, that's why
I think that's a really, really good point to make. And I think it's especially because a lot of people run straight to HMOs or a different strategy just to get that cash flow turning as quickly as possible so they can replace their income and things like that. And I think there's a couple of things there. So I don't think as kind of local authorities, councillors, elected members and stuff like that, HMOs are not popular. So I think there is a real reason to suspect that actually at some point somebody's going to change a rule somewhere that it could impact HMOs. But also that point you were making about being risk averse, being very careful and stuff like that, that is something I see a lot from people I speak to. And I think there's this kind of misconception that because you invest in property and stuff like that, you love taking risk and stuff like that. I'm quite risk averse, and the majority of people I speak to are risk averse, which is kind of why you want investment properties, because safe as houses, it's one of those kind of
totally and absolutely. With my own money, 100% buy a lottery ticket. With my like business money, oh no, like wouldn't even risk that. You know what I mean? When you're putting that much money on it, it's got to be right. And I think just on one of the points you said, let's be honest, buy-to-lets are really boring. They're really boring. They're low budget refurbs. There's no real design element there. They are boring. So I feel like, especially for us, like the HMOs were a lot more exciting and it's easier to make the numbers work. The offers have to be as low because you can maximize space. One extension and you've suddenly like got a deal. And so I feel like it's easier almost to start with HMOs for that reason, because it's funner. It feels more fulfilling at the time. It's more exciting. It's shinier. And you're not having to do 40 viewings for one offer accepted. But for us, it's really paid off having both. And actually, I love buy-to-lets, and we will always do buy-to-lets. Now, our strategy moving forward is serviced accommodation, just because where we've moved to, we can't get buy-to-lets or HMOs to work in the way that we do our numbers. And we don't want to invest away from home now that we've got a little one. Now looking at like serviced accommodation. But the plan is to reinvest, and still, all probably through sources now moving forward, still like in our investment area, just because I just love them. I know they're not as high cash flowing, they're not as exciting, but they have really, almost like a warm hug where you're like, oh, okay, I'm safe. I've got a nice buy to let, it's okay. So yeah, that's just kind of how we see it anyway.
No, I think it's great. I think again, I think it is one of those things that needs to be kind of highlighted sometimes, that, you know, having those kind of very solid investments that aren't, you know, particularly sexy or exciting, that is, yeah, a great foundation. Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. Okay, so thinking back to when you were in the job, you were a teacher, right? Yeah. So what did you teach actually? What was your subject?
I taught French and Spanish.
Oh, okay.
French and Spanish. But to be honest, it was a bit of a pointless subject because I taught in quite a deprived area in East London, and most of the kids had English as the second language anyway, didn't have passports, and they would say to me, you know, Miss, I already speak like 3 other languages, why do I need to learn French and Spanish? But for me, it was more a vehicle of being there, and I did a lot more pastoral stuff. So I did like the Duke of Edinburgh stuff with them, and careers and PSHE and stuff like that. So I loved it, absolutely loved it. It was like the best job ever. I loved it.
That's cool. Okay. So is it something you always wanted to do, or is it something you were great at language and it kind of...
No, so I actually was a career changer. So after leaving uni, I went into the events industry. So I was like an events manager and events planner, project manager, and then just kind of woke up one day and it felt a bit soulless to me. And I thought, you know what, if this job doesn't exist tomorrow, the world will still go round. I want to do something that is going to make a difference if this doesn't exist. And so I did a program called Teach First, where you don't really get to choose what you teach. They just so you apply for either primary, or it's a charity that puts you in a rough school basically, and my qualifications, I only had languages at A levels. I didn't have anything else. My degree was language, so that's kind of all I had to offer at secondary. But yeah, it was great. I worked with some really great kids, and I plan to go back to teaching. My kind of full-time in property is only like a stopgap really, whilst I have my own children. Once they're all of school age, then I want to go back into teaching.
Okay, that's really interesting. But I suppose having the property, it will be on your terms, because it's not like a lot of people where you have to have that job or else you can't pay your bills, sort of thing. It'll be, I'm sure that'll be really nice going back knowing full well that it's you're doing it for the right reason.
Yeah, 100%. I do it for the fulfillment, because I love working for myself, but I don't have, I mean, this is a really controversial statement on a property podcast. I don't have a massive passion for property. I have a passion for what property has done for my family. So I miss fulfillment with it. So I will, when I've had my own kids, I will go back into teaching for that fulfillment, I think.
But what a great thing it gives you. It gives you that control over, you know, being able to take some time out for you, you know, for those early years and stuff like that. So that's, yeah, great.
Yeah,
but I mean,
absolutely.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in property who either don't start off loving property or definitely end up not loving property because of, you know, various things. So yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, I'm yet to meet them. Everyone I meet is like, I love it, it's my passion. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, it's fun, I do love it, but you know, it's not as a snotty kid telling you to F off because they don't want to read the textbook. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same. And you must know, you're, you know, social stuff, so you get it.
Yeah. I'm sat in an office though. So I don't. Although somebody, I did have a real tirade of expletives from somebody last week. So that was good fun on the phone. So he was going off on
like,
good time.
Can you change your tone, please, if you wish to continue this conversation?
One of my things was, this has turned from conversation to a rant. I think you need to calm it down.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I used to say, can we remember where we are, please? We're in the classroom, not the playground.
Yeah. To be honest, he's not. He's got nothing. He's like a family member. I didn't really need to be talking to him, so I was a bit like, I'm done with you.
Take this. Yeah.
But
get an HMO, you'll get abuse from your tenants instead.
Yeah, well, I've got. But yeah, that's cool. Okay, so going back then, when you were juggling teaching and property investment, so what did your kind of normal week look like in terms of fitting property investment around the teaching?
Sure. So I was obviously working full time, as was my husband, and we were literally like ships passing in the night. And that was the reason why we wanted to set up our own business together in the first place. Because I don't know if you've ever read the book The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. If you haven't, definitely read it. It's amazing. It basically is like how you give and receive love. And ours was quality time. So we just wanted to hang out all the time. And with our jobs, he was obviously like in finance in the city, and me being a teacher, it's just all consuming. So when we started looking into, okay, what can we do together? We initially looked at Forex trading, and then I just got really frustrated because I was like, you're bloody good at this. And I haven't got any time to do it. So this isn't working. This is not balanced. So we quickly sacked that off, got into property. And so a typical week for us, we very quickly realized that we weren't the kind of people who buy into this hustle, sleep when you're dead. Like, it works really well for some people, but for us, it just didn't. It just killed our mojo. So when we first started doing it, we were all pumped up and we were like, right, every night, we did the classic thing of put a post-it note of your financial freedom figure on your TVs that you don't turn your TV on. And literally within 2 weeks, I was like, I hate this. What is this? We got no life. This is crap. Not doing this. So we just kind of worked out what our capacity was. And for us, it was 3 nights initially for the first 10 months. It was 3 nights a week. And then weekends. So for those 3 nights, we would do from when we got in, we'd come in, have dinner, and then we'd basically do from like 8 till 10 for 3 nights. And it was set nights of the week. And then the other 2, we had one night like solo where we'd go out with our mates. And then one night was date night where we didn't talk about property. So we had 3 nights doing that. And then at weekends, and we'd go up and do viewings. But then after about 8 months, so we did training in like the February. And then by the September, so yeah, must have been about 9 months. By the September, we actually realized that that wasn't enough for us. We were moving at what we felt was like a snail's pace. Yeah. So we actually then made the decision to both drop down to 4 days a week at work. Okay. And obviously, financially, we took a hit. But we said, you know what, for short term, that's fine, because we figured we would gain in property. So we both dropped down to 4 days. I was really flexible. My work, I was blessed. They didn't know why I was dropping down to 4 days, but they accepted my request. And so I got down to 4 days, and then he was his own boss anyway. So he then just set his day off around mine, and it was Tuesdays. So we would then go up to our investment area every Tuesday. And I know not everyone is in the position where they can do this, but we went up every Tuesday and did all the viewings, and then stuck to our 3 nights. So then Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, where we would do like admin or calculate offers or whatever. And we then basically did that for close to, a year and 4 months, where it was, until we've left like the following December. So initially it was just the 3 nights and weekends, and then 1 full day and 3 nights, and didn't go out weekends. And that's just what worked for us, because we realized that actually for us to work all the hours under the sun, I think our jobs took so much from us anyway. Yeah. That's be doing this so much just killed our passion for everything, and we just ended up squabbling and just nitpicking, and we just said, you know what, we don't need to follow the social media hype of work. We need to know our capacity, and that was, for us, that's just what worked.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good, and it sounds nice that you had that structure that you could kind of stick to and everything like that. But I think there's this whole thing on social media about hustling and things like that. When did hustling become the what you wanted to do with your life?
Badge of honor.
Yeah,
100%. And I think there is periods where you have to hustle. Yeah. So we have had periods of time where we're like, right, let's go. But one of the things that we kind of heard was, be selfish now so you can be unselfish later, as in like, don't see anyone, don't do anything, like cancel your social plans, build your business, and then you'll have all the freedom. But we, for us, didn't find that to be the case, because now we have our business. If we wanted to be, we could be just as busy as we always were. The whole like I think it's Parkinson's law, where whatever task you do is going to fill the time that you give it. Yeah. We just thought, you know what, like, you never know what's going to happen. And I think COVID is a real eye-opener for that. Like, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And if you've just my personal opinion, if you've just spent a year where you've not, you've missed weddings, you missed birthday parties, you missed everything because you're hustling so much, then what's it worth? For us, it was more about balance. And yeah, but I know that's controversial. I know that's not like the social media spiel, which is like, yeah, we worked every night and blah blah. We didn't. We still watch trash TV, and I love Married at First Sight Australia, and we have, you know, we didn't.
We are
Oh my God,
obsessed with that
obsessed.
program. We are absolutely
Oh,
obsessed with that program. Honestly,
isn't it amazing?
honestly, I know full well Lara, my wife, is sat in there thinking, God, when's he going to come back in so we can watch Married at First Sight Australia?
Oh, me too. I've got a glass of wine waiting, and it's there on pause. I'm like, and I was thinking, you know what? Like, yeah, you're building a business, but that doesn't mean you should have to lose your life at the same time. But
Oh no,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, maybe I'm lazy. I don't know.
No, I think it's one of those things, and it's like everybody, you know, especially you know, like teaching, that must have been really, really full on all day. And like you're saying, like you having to give a lot, especially if you're doing that kind of pastoral side of it, where you I'm sure you had some very difficult conversations with people and making sure they were kind of going in the right direction and things like that. So I mean, that takes a lot out of you to then hustle every second when you're not in work as well. I mean, that is a big ask when you know full well.
I mean,
When you know full well that Married at First Sight Australia is sitting there waiting to be watched as well. So
yeah, and I don't want to be conceived. I have a huge admiration for the hustlers, and I know they smash it, and I wish I had that in me. I just don't. So doesn't mean I don't work hard. I just work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, no, it's different people though, isn't it? And it's kind of what you value and things like that. And I don't think anybody should make anyone else feel guilty for hustling 4 days a week rather than 5, or it's who says you should do that? It's crazy, really. But yeah, no, it sounds like you, with that structure and that kind of commitment to it though, you've done everything you needed to get out. So yeah, perfect.
Just worked for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so did you have any so obviously you had the structure of getting things in place in terms of getting your investments and stuff like that, but did you do any other kind of preparation running up to you handling your notice?
No, ours was kind of a bit spur of the moment as well. Like we left our jobs a lot earlier than we thought we would. So we didn't prepare probably as well as we should have. I would say the main thing that we did was check we could get finance.
Okay.
Because when you suddenly don't have like a full-time job, you're considered a bit different. So we spoke to our broker and said, if we go self-employed, or if we don't have an income of 25k and above, which seems to be the marker for a lot of lenders, 25k income outside of property, we said, if we don't have that, can we still get borrowing? And the answer was yes. So that was fine. Okay. And fair touch with, we've never had any rejections. Sometimes we have to take a slightly higher interest rate, but it's like, maybe 3.4 instead of 3.2. It's nothing to write home about. That's not been affected. So we just made sure we could do that. And we made sure that we had personal savings of our own that we could survive 3 months without any income, like just in case anything happened in our properties and we suddenly couldn't take any money from them, could we still survive 3 months? And we did. But like I said, it was a bit of a spur of the moment. We were just on honeymoon and we were walking along the beach and we were like, oh, can you imagine in like 5 years time, like when we're off? And then we're like, well, in 5 years time, we're probably going to have children. So we're not really going to be off. And we were like, oh, crap. Well, why don't we just leave now then? And obviously I had to give a term notice at school. So it was then kind of 4 months from making the decision. But it was literally a case of, okay, well, let's just do it now. And obviously we couldn't stay in London. Like our cost of living in London, we didn't have enough income to match that. So we were like, right, well, that's not our only option. Let's think outside the box here. What could we do? Could we leave London? And we were like, what? That's inconceivable. No, you can't leave London. It's more important to us to just hang out all the time and have that quality time. That's all we wanted to do. We just wanted to hang out. Yeah. So we were like, okay, well, in that case, we're going to have to move somewhere cheaper. And our investment area, we know in the Midlands, is much cheaper. So we were like, okay, well, how could we get our expenses down? How much income do we have? from properties? What more do we think is realistic within the next 4 months? Do we have anything in the pipeline? We had a few in the pipeline, so we're like, okay, when they come in, plus the 3 months, we basically just made sure that financially it all stacked up and that we had a bit of a safety net. And then we just kind of went for it. And we went from a flat in London with an £1,800 a month mortgage to like a 1-bed rental flat in our investment area that was £495 a month.
Wow.
So like, obviously that was huge in terms of being able to, you know, leave work and stuff. And everything like council tax bills, everything was so much cheaper there. And we didn't have the weekly fuel expense. We were spending, you know, 300 quid plus on fuel, all the petrol station food, all of that kind of went. So for us, it was just a bit of a switch of mindset. So in terms of preparation, it was quite quick. We decided in the August and we left by the December.
Wow.
It was just a case of, right, from December, from when we got back in the September to December, just batten down the hatches, save every penny away that we can, make sure we have this 3 months to buy us Q1 basically, and then that and check we can get lending. And that was pretty much all we did. Oh, and obviously we checked that we could let our London flat, which we could, that was fine. We just that the rent would cover the payments and get like consent to let and all of that. So we did our homework in terms of that, but that was kind of it. We didn't have a huge plan of when we left. We just planned, oh my god, it's gonna be amazing, we're gonna hang out and do property all the time. We didn't actually realize, or we didn't actually think through what that would look like until we were there.
So that's great. And I think it's one of those things that because although it seems like a relatively fast turnaround, I mean, getting that emergency fund, consent to let, and all those bits and pieces, it sounds like actually it was relatively straightforward in a way, you know, and especially because you were able to move somewhere that had a much lower cost of living, because 1,800 quid a month on a mortgage, I mean, that sounds kind of very, kind of, for me, that sounds like high, very high, but it's because we don't live in London, so you know.
Yeah, and I think it was easier for us because we weren't really precious. If we'd been really precious and didn't want to leave London and didn't want to leave, you know, like a lovely flat with river views, and we didn't want to leave like a personalized parking space, if we didn't want to leave all of that, then it would have been a lot more complicated, and we just couldn't have left work when we did. But for us, we picked time over attachment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah, we love this and we love jobs and we love being by our friends, but actually we would rather have that time together and work together and build something as like, it was like an adventure. It was literally like, we only moved 3 hours away, but it literally, like, it was a massive sacrifice as well. Like, we were really quite lonely at times because we didn't know anyone other than our power team. And so obviously, yeah, we could go to the pub with our, but not every week we can be like, can we come to the pub with you? You know, you get a bit sad. We did a few times.
Well, yeah.
You know me, I was just like, yeah, can we come? But
call it a meeting.
You know, we were quite isolated. So and obviously it is different going into rented, and we had to kind of furnish it from like a charity shop because we left ours furnished, and there was a lot of sacrifices from that point of view. But the biggest game for us, like I keep saying, was just we just got to be together and hang out and do it. We didn't feel like we were wasting any time. So,
but like you say as well, it sounds like a real adventure. So yeah, it must have been exciting. Must have been really exciting, kind of making that kind of jump. Yeah. Is there anything that surprised you about life after kind of the day job, life, you know, as a kind of full-time investor?
Yeah, massively. It was like, I'd say we had 2 months of World War III with each other.
Okay.
Honestly, it was mental. When we were doing it part-time, it was kind of like we thought we had this business and we always referred to it as our business. But when we look back, we kind of did it as a hobby. So we both did everything, both involved in everything. We loved it. Everything was fun. Even the boring bits were super exciting because it was like alongside what we were doing. And we got on amazingly. And we used to pride ourselves and be like, wow, do you think all couples get on as well as we get on? Blah, blah, blah. And then we moved and we went into doing it full-time. And I was like, who is this person? And he was like, what the hell are you? And we had completely different styles and completely different ideals. And that's something I wish we had prepared. We should have had, it's so obvious now, but at the time we were just so excited we didn't think about it. We should have said, how do you see this going? How do you see our days? And we never had any of those conversations. When we got up there, I'm a teacher, I'm a massive workaholic. So I was like, we're here to work. I expect us to be working from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. Why wouldn't we? We've traded in so much to be here. Whereas he was like, we're here to hang out. You said we were leaving to hang out. We need to work from literally 10 till 2. Why are you time? And literally it was just like, oh my God, we can't get on the same page. And in terms of communication, we didn't suddenly like working together. As an accountant, he does everything retrospectively. So accountants look back at the year and they'll do your tax return where everything is looking back, whereas a teacher, you're always looking forward. So you're like, okay, what do the students need to know by the end of this module? So when it came to this year that we'd said we'd move for a year, so we're like, okay, we've got 12 months here. How is this going to play out? And we were just on such different pages, and it took a lot of working through and a lot of communication and a lot of, okay, right, what is actually important? What bits do you like? What bits do you not like? Divide and conquer, not just doing everything all together all the time. And that really threw me. I was not expecting that at all. And it was totally fine. We sorted it all out after a couple of months, but it was a huge shock that I was just not expecting at all. I was like, I remember storming out the flat one day crying. I was like, Mum, this is going to be fun and this is a nightmare. And it was just, we just hadn't really considered what it's like working full time with each other compared to part time. Now I'm loving it, but at the time that really surprised me, massively.
And it's like one of those other things, like we were just kind of talking about, this kind of Instagram, hustle or this sort of business. But there's also this this perception that once you're out of the day job, everything's rosy and it's all good. But maybe not.
Oh, it's dreamy, yeah. Not at all. And like we're having a great time, like we're having a ball, and I wouldn't change it. If I went back in time, I wouldn't change it at all. And I think it's great. And I think if you aspire to get out of your job, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whatever your motivations are, 100% go for it. As long as you got your house in order financially, I would 100% say go for it. But I've come to realize that we're not actually property investors, we are problem solvers. Because I like our whole life doing property full time and that being our main source of income, I feel like is just a giant game of chess. So we're always thinking, okay, right, this has happened. There's 3 possible outcomes there. Have we got a scenario for when each one of these three things happen? Okay, so for example, right, you get a down valuation. Okay, have we planned for that down valuation? Was it because of this, and this? What can we do differently? Is there a way that we can maneuver money around to still repay an investor? Can we do this? Can we do that? Or, for example, take an HMO. You might get a void that you weren't expecting, and just for argument's sake, say you haven't planned for it. Like, okay, where in our portfolio can we take some additional income that can plug that gap, or whatever it may be? Or, for example, one of our buy-to-lets had a pipe burst, and it was a mains pipe, so it wasn't from our property, it was from the main under the road, but it flooded us and the neighbour, and they had a new AstroTurf, and they were kicking off about how it's ruined their AstroTurf. I was like, mate, you've just wiped out 3 months profit for me, and you're kicking off about your AstroTurf, but whatever. And so I think for us, like, we don't really refer to ourselves as when we're talking to each other, we're not really property investors, we are just problem solvers. And there is definitely this illusion of like, oh, when you work for yourself, everything's amazing, you have all the knowledge, you can literally just go next, tick, 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 tick. And it's not. There is constantly stuff going on in the background, and it's whether you see it as a problem or you just see it as like something to solve or whatever. Like, we really positive, and we're like, okay, it's just the next move in our game of chess. Like, we played chess against the universe, like, it's fine. But yeah, I definitely feel like there's an illusion of, oh, I'm at my day job, everything's amazing, and go for it, it's perfect. And we've just not found that. We've loved it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But it's been hard and being in a proper job for different reasons, I think. And that's just me speaking honestly.
No, I think that's why it's great to speak to people like you, because you're on the other side of it in a way, but you're not kind of, you're obviously not kind of sat there kind of trying to sell an idealistic view of it. You're not trying to sell something that's not real. It's this is reality of going into it full time, and dealing with those different issues that crop up, and and like you're saying, kind of.
And what I would say is you deal with them as well when you're in a job, but the difference is it's less scary because you have your salary to fall back on.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't have a back on, those things feel like, just in my experience, they feel a lot more serious. So we, of course, still had issues and problems, as everybody does, when we were working, but they were just more of a headache. Like, oh, we need to, this tenant's brought a dog into the house. Okay, we need to deal with that. It doesn't matter. Whereas if that happens now, it's like, I mean, that's not a great example because there's no financial impact there, but the problems, they're different. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
I suppose your salary kind of smooths out the peaks and troughs, doesn't it? Because you've always always got that coming in regardless. So it's kind of, it smooths.
Very eloquently put. Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
That's it. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Totally.
Cool. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good message to get over, really, because I do think there's this thing on, especially on Instagram and stuff like that, as almost like a little cult of ditch the 9 to 5 and stuff like that. And I think for a lot of people that'd be great, but don't expect it to be absolutely perfect. It's just,
I think just make sure that you know yourself and you know that you have sufficient mental capacity and resilience. You just got to be resilient. That's it. Bottom line.
That's good. Obviously you had like quite a quick turnaround from making that decision to leaving, but was there I don't know, like a particular deal that made you feel comfortable making that decision, or a kind of what kind of made you feel comfortable in terms of the kind of income you were getting in? Was it having multiple properties with a kind of a diversity there, or was there?
So that's an interesting question. Like, we didn't have diversity at the time. We only had HMOs. And I think when I think back, when we moved, we had 4 HMOs, I think. And so the income wasn't straight up, I'm going to be honest about that. We hadn't replaced our London wages, but we felt that for us, it was a race against time. We knew we wanted a couple of years clear before family. So for us, it was almost a bit reverse engineered of like, okay, this is the money that we have. What lifestyle can we create with that money? Rather than doing it the other way around and saying, okay, we want this lifestyle, so this is how much we need. And when we get that amount, we'll leave, which is what our plan was all along. We had said, once we've matched our salaries, then we'll leave. But then obviously then when we had out on honeymoon, we were like, okay, we haven't matched our salaries and we are, X number of deals still to go. That could take us another 2 years. So actually, what have we got? We knew we had a deal in the pipeline and we had like an estimated cash flow from that. So we were like, using all of that money, what could we do? And that's when we were like, okay, we can't live in London. We're going to have to move. And we just kind of worked. So we kind of did it backwards. So initially, we did start out thinking, right, we need X amount. And it was purely just to replace our pay. But then when we realized, okay, we want to move sooner, it was more of how can we make it work with what we've got? I think something that did make us feel confident is that with the HMOs at the beginning, I wasn't very confident. I'm still not very good at it, to be honest, in terms of raising finance from private investors. For me, that's just like a mental block to struggle with. So we did our first couple of deals using bridging loans because I didn't feel, just for me personally, I didn't feel safe using someone else's money until I had proven to myself that we could go through the whole process of buy below market value, refurb, refinance, blah, 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 and pay back. So we did a couple on bridging loans and then we secured an angel for the next one. And I think possibly, I mean, I don't know if what I was thinking at the time, but looking back, I'm not sure I would have taken the leap without having done that, because I would have been afraid to just be stuck using bridging loans forever. And we do use bridging loans a lot because I do shy away. So we always just have to make sure that our deals stack up. Buy to let, no problem. Most of them are funded by private investors. With our HMOs, I just, in the early days, like struggled with my confidence with it a lot more. So I think that was something that made me think, okay, cool, we can raise finance and we have successfully paid back. So there is a future here. This isn't like a one-hit wonder that's going to fizzle out. This is worth leaving my career for. Like, we can make this work. So I think probably deep down there was that confidence.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It does. It makes a lot of sense because, and it's like other kind of the things you've mentioned is if you had to rely on one thing, which then all of a sudden dried up, what are you going to do? So yeah, no, it makes absolutely,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense having that kind of testing it out and making sure you had those different opportunities. So very sensible, I think. And I think as well is I think a lot of people have that target of replacing income as like that's when to kind of go. So it's really interesting hearing a different perspective on it, really, especially with that kind of decision you made to rent your London flat out and move and everything. It's a big decision, really. So
Yeah, it's just worked for us. I think we'd probably never have done it otherwise, because then we'd get to the point where it was like, okay, we can replace our salaries, but all right, now we're going to have children. Okay, so we need the stability of a job. I feel like maybe for us and our personalities, maybe we would have missed the boat if we didn't do it then. We probably might have
so there's always a reason not to do these things as well, isn't there? Always.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What originally sparked your interest in property then, looking back?
I don't really know if it was property. It was basically Facebook stalked me or Google stalked me. So I was looking into, like, when they follow you around, don't they? And you get like the personal ads. So I had been looking at silly little things like businesses to do with your partner and, stuff like that. And like I said, we'd looked at Forex. We'd done like some investigation to like Forex trading and stuff like that. And then I just saw a pop-up for a property workshop. It was just like a free 2-hour. And I had this property in Norwich I had from my dad, and I literally hated it. It was so irritating. My dad's a bit older. My parents divorced, and my dad is actually quite a lot older. And he'd kind of said to me when I was at uni, here's inheritance. I don't want to pay inheritance tax on it. If I'm going to live 7 more years, here you go. Here's a load of money. You have to put it into a property and you have to live in it. And then you have to manage it. But the rent's still coming to me. And I managed it from a distance. Now it's got a letting agent, but I just saw it as like the bane of my life. I was like, oh, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. Then when I saw this 2-hour workshop, I was like, absolutely no way. Property is not for me. It's so time consuming. It's such a ball ache. Like, I'm not doing it. And my husband was like, well, let's just go and have a look. And then when we went to it, they were talking about leveraging and using estate agents and time for money, because I'd never used, not estate agent, letting agent. I'd never used a letting agent because my dad was always like, keep every penny, like don't outsource anything. Even operating, I was doing myself. And that's why I hated it. And so then when I had a change of mindset, it was like, outsource everything that you hate. I was like, oh my God, this might just work. And so, yeah, it was from that. And also with that property, it was mortgaged, but I was able to mortgage it. I could take some for the refurb for first HMO, which again, I was like, okay, cool. That works. We can buy something on a bridge and we've got a little bit of capital that I can take for the refurb and like the deposit. Okay, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So it was never that I actively wanted to go. I actually didn't want to do property, but it was just the only opportunity that we saw of us building a proper business that would pass the test of time, that we wouldn't get bored of, that we could outsource if we wanted to, and that we just thought would work for us. So we kind of fell into it, really.
No, it's good.
Rather than feeling excited about it.
And again, it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear like a different way in, because that's quite nice hearing it, because I think a lot of people a lot of people go into it going through a course, for instance, or whatever, but doing everything, not having a letting agent, doing all the decoration stuff out. Of course you're going to think it's a pain in the ass, because it's a pain in the ass if you do everything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's
just mindset though, isn't it? I didn't think about it as a business. I saw it as like pocket. My dad saw it as pocket money rather than it being a business. So
yeah, cool.
And as a business we can streamline, it's much easier.
Absolutely. So thinking back to when you were juggling, what kind of 3 tips would you have for people who are in that position?
So first of all, income generating tasks. You don't need to spend 2 hours picking tiles. that's really fun. But when time is precious, that is not going to make you money. Like, we very quickly learned that we could lose hours and hours and hours of Rich designing amazing color coded formatted spreadsheets, because that's what he loved. And I could spend hours just browsing nonsense and like coming up with mood boards and all of that. And I'm not saying you don't need to do that, because if you want high spec design, you do. But when time is precious, is that going to make you money? No. And so for us, I would say, or from my point of view, I'd say the number one tip is, when you're trying to balance and your time is limited, focus on what is going to make you money. So it doesn't matter if you're writing on a post-it note. It doesn't need to be on a spreadsheet. It can be on a post-it note. You need to spend your time doing the stuff that's going to make you money. And in property, that is viewings, offerings, area research, building relationships in the area. That, for me, my number one tip is just spend your time on income generate, or the majority of your time on income generating tasks. Don't worry about the fluff. The fluff is fun, and that can come later. So that's the first tip. The second tip, I would say, know yourself and know your mental capacity. So like I was saying earlier, if you're not a hustler, 10 hours a day or whatever, don't worry, don't beat yourself up. That's fine. You just got to be really smart with the time that you do have, because otherwise you'll lose your passion. So focus on income generating tasks, know yourself and your own capacity, and work to that. And then I would say third tip is, I'd say probably just have faith and just believe that if you want something, it will happen. And you might have to think outside the box. Like, we did our financial freedom figure. We never met it before leaving, but we still managed to leave. Like, think outside the box a little bit if you can. Think about various different routes, different ways, different things, but just have faith, because I'm a huge believer in like the law of attraction and The Secret, and I have a vision board, and I 100% believe in all of that. And if you believe that actually this is what you're meant to be doing, then you will find the energy from somewhere, you will find the money from somewhere, you will find the deals, whatever, it will all come. So yeah, income generating tasks, know yourself and your capacity, and just have faith and just keep going. You just got to be resilient, just keep going, keep going, keep going. It's like a treadmill.
Yeah,
you'll get there eventually.
Fantastic. I think, yeah, definitely that perseverance as well. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people who probably get a way into it and then just think, Jesus Christ, this is never going to come off, and then just ditch it. And of course, it doesn't work for them. So yeah, no, I think that's great. Really good tips. Really good. Have you got any business books or property books or books that you kind of go back to?
Books. So I'd say probably, obviously, Rich Dad Poor Dad, but everyone says that because that's everyone's light bulb. But
you're not allowed that. Everyone says it.
No, it's boring. So I'm going to say Profit First. So Profit First, I don't know if you've read Profit First.
No?
Profit First is an amazing business book, and it's basically about not money management in terms of, okay, you put, your savings in this pot and your tax in this pot, but just in terms of how you see your business. It basically, fundamentally, it says your business is like a monster that you just have to feed. It's like this machine that you just have to feed it cash all the time, and it will get as big as you'll keep feeding it. So I know that's not very eloquently put. That's why I don't write book summaries, but basically it's about how you can ensure that you're still taking profit regardless of what is happening in your business. And it's how to trim the fat, how to get rid of stuff you don't need. Like, do you need an amazing printer with this incredible color cartridge? No, probably not. So get rid of that. That's an extra 50 quid you made. It's a really amazing book for changing the way that you think about your business finances. And I 100% recommend it for any business. It's not property specific, but just for any business, in terms of how you set up your money to ensure that you aren't just a slave to it and not taking any money from it. Make sure that, the whole reason why we all go into business is to make profits. And yes, there's sacrifices. If you're 3 years in and you've still not taken a penny from it, then I would suggest there's something going wrong there. So this book is about how to make sure that you don't fall into that trap of just work, paying everyone else, servicing everything else you to service, and you ending up with less and less and less and less and less, but working more and more and more. It's really clever, really, really good.
Sounds like was it Profit First? Was that?
Yeah,
sounds good. Yeah, I'll check that one out. Sounds really good. And any kind of tools or bits of software or anything like that you kind of really go back to, or you just into
Asana. Do you use Asana?
Trello.
I love. I'm not a Trello fan. That's like to-do list, isn't it, Trello?
Yeah.
So with Asana, so when we moved to our investment area, and like I said, we had World War III with each other, we actually got a coach that we started working with.
Okay.
And one of the things that he said that rings true is he said, you need something that will remember everything for you so that you don't have to. Because there's nothing worse than going to bed at like 10 p.m. and your brain is going, oh, I need to do that. I need to do that. And then you have to get your phone, you have to put it in your notes. And then you start going to sleep again. And oh, I need to do that. You quickly put it in your phone notes. Whereas Asana, you basically, each task you put in, you set the date and you could allocate tasks. So I could put stuff in there and like set it for Rich for the next day. And then he'd get an email saying, here's everything you need to do allocated by Tory. And he'd be like, what is all this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, you need to do it. You can basically, so if you have a VA on board, which at one point we were going to get a VA, you can allocate tasks. So you can see what everyone is doing. You can set dates, and then you forget about it. You get an email on that date from Asana saying, today you need to, I don't know, book your gas safety inspection or whatever. So you don't have to remember it. It's all there. And you can set like templates. So for example, with our buy-to-let refurbs or HMOs refurbs, whatever, but buy-to-let, because that's more cookie cutter, HMOs more bespoke. We have one massive buy-to-let refurb template that took us probably half a day to put together. But we just then replicate that every buy-to-let, we just kind of put it with a new name, and then we share it with our builder, and it shows every, like, we don't micromanage at all, but we set everything out super, super clearly at the beginning. So we have like a 10-page job spec and contract, and it has scared a lot of builders off, but hey, you know, they're not the right people to work with us, are they, if they don't like it? So we have all of that, and then we have Asana, and the builders can have Asana on their phone. And when they've done something, they literally just tick it as done. And it means we don't have to ring them. We don't have to WhatsApp them. We don't have to pester them. And all through the week, we can see what they've done. They can take photos if they want, through like another app that iAuditor, which like links to Asana. And we've just found, I just absolutely love it. And I can go into it and I can see, okay, on this project, for example, today, the radiator should have been fitted. And if the builder hasn't said that it's been done, we didn't make our builders do it every day, to be fair. We had Wednesdays and Fridays. So Wednesday, I needed a summary, which was like 4 questions they had to answer in the notes. And then on Fridays, like a summary. And if I could see on the Friday that the Wednesday thing hadn't been ticked, then I could be like, hey, did the radiators go in today? And it's just really, for us, like when you've got multiple projects going on at a time, for us, we found it to be a really easy way to keep on top of everything and to keep everyone on the same page without having, you know, a call in the middle of the day with one builder, then another one in the afternoon, and constantly having to be on the phone and constantly WhatsApping people. We found when we had multiple projects at a time, we found that really overwhelming. We were like, actually, we need like a much clearer way of managing this, where we don't have to be taking phone calls and WhatsApps all the time. And plus, you know, Rich is an accountant, he doesn't like talking to people. So we were like, like an automated way of doing this. And Asana is just dreamy. I love it.
It sounds really good. It sounds really good. I really like the idea of having everything like a template done for buy-to-lets, and then you just kind of put that into a different project and move it to the next one and the next one. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Because you just systemize
literally all the details, even down. Yeah, absolutely. And even down to like, okay, on this week, call the letting agent, tell them that we're about a month away. You know, the tiny little things that if you get, you're then like, oh, yeah, I probably should have told them a month ago. Or, you know, get an extra set of key card and get the builder to drop them off at whatever place. Like all the tiny minutiae that is so easily forgot. You can just have it all there in one place, and then you never have to think about it again because it's just there. You can literally, your brain can switch off.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Cool. Okay. So once you've, I don't know whether this question really applies because you've sort of already said, but I was going to say, when you have everything in place that you want in place, so all the properties you aim to have and everything like that, what will your lives look like?
So Rich and I are on very different pages with this, and one of the things that we've come to realize is that's okay. Like it's okay to have completely different goals. So his life will look like a Tesla in the drive, a massive house with big electric gates, and multiple Caribbean holidays a year. That's my life with him. That's from his goals. Me, I would love my property income to fund like a youth club, because a lot of that I used to work with, there was a lot of like There's a lot of gang issues. There was a lot of like overcrowding issues, poverty, all the classic like socioeconomic deprivation issues. And they had nowhere to go. And so I just used to watch these kids hang out in the park, and you know, the government have cut funding on all that. Well, you probably know they've cut all the funding on loads of stuff. And so my dream would be to set up like kind of like Biker Grove style, if you think back to, or Grange Hill or whatever it was, like an amazing like youth centre where kids can come with like a pool table and, you know, free vending machine, or, you know, porridge pots if they haven't had any dinner or whatever. And that I just fund it. I don't want to manage it. I don't really want to be there. But I would love to fund it. So our end goal, that's kind of like a 10, 15-year plan. But our end goal, when we both achieve what we want, I will have a mansion and a Tesla and everything, because that's my husband's goals. And I will have this amazing youth centre that I can then go, okay, that wasn't soulless. Because I went into teaching for something soul nourishing, and property is amazing, but it's not always soul nourishing if it's not utilised correctly. And so I want to make sure that I still, without being really cliche, like I still feed my soul with that. So that's what our lives will look like.
It's been great kind of getting to know you and your you know, your route through so far and what you're up to and stuff like that. And I'll keep an eye on what you're up to on Instagram. But where can other people kind of find you and reach out and things like that?
Yep, so our website is crap, don't look at it. We built it ourselves on Wix because a lender said, what's your website? So we were like, oh shit, we better quickly do a website. We never use that. So just Instagram, just Tory Kerslake Properties. I'm very hit and miss with it. Sometimes I'm super active, sometimes I'm not at all. But yeah, on there, and I'm happy to chat to anybody about anything. So if anyone wants to message me or anything, I'm happy to like talk to anyone about anything at all.
Cool.
In life.
That's cool. Great. Well, thank you again for coming on. It's been it's been really good. And
thank you so much for having me.
No worries.
It's been super fun, and I love your stuff. So I will keep sharing it and stuff because I think it's
cool.
wicked what you do.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please leave me a 5-star review to help other people find it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.